All right, guys, welcome to an episode of the Fit Podcast. It's been a minute since we've done this. I got Josh back on. Tonight's episode, we're going to talk about a couple of things, two things. We're going to talk about the number one reason that we find why injuries occur for clients. It's going to be a two-part episode or two-part series, kind of. We got four reasons. And we're going to kind of talk about the other two towards the end and kind of mention those to kind of give you guys an idea about what the next episode is going to be about. But the first reason is going to be about improper load management, and the second is going to be about bad technique. So, with that, Josh, welcome. It's good to see you
You
again, man.
you as well.
I know we both been busy. It's a busy time of the year, so it's kind of understandable. We've kind of taken a little bit of a siesta with doing some podcasting episodes. So, but it's good to get back at it. So, Josh, let me lead off with the first question. Okay, people think or hear the word load management and injury, are the two words, injuries, and I guess that's three: load management and injuries. Why do you think load management is one of the biggest reasons why people get injuries, or clients of yours or people who you've seen in your experience?
Yeah, so I do want to start out with blessing my roster and history, relatively injury free. I've only had one major one, year one in my career. I'm going on year 12 now. And I think that's generally how training should look.
Hmm.
And that's not to say I haven't had clients get injured along the way.
Yeah.
Um, And definitely just gym members in general. People, I know it's right around the corner for us to be looking at New Year's resolutioners. A lot of people, I've heard quite a few horror stories of injuries coming out of those first couple months of the gym.
Hmm.
So load management, what I think about as a trainer, is how much do we load a tissue? So certifications I've taken have taught an actual mathematical equation for injury. And that's applied force is greater than tissue tolerance. That equals injury just about every single time. Um, so it's what I look to do as a trainer and what I think new people should look to do in the gym when they get into that setting is just manage the load you put on your body. Um, We've all heard of ego lifting. Definitely, I have lived that life for a long time when I was a lot younger. Um, I know especially us young men are prone to that. Uh,
Hmm.
Technique trumps all. So, I mean, take the time to learn the skill. Movement is a skill that you need to take your body through. Take the time to learn it at lesser weight load, no weight load. Make sure you get in the right positions. You feel the right muscles that you're supposed to feel working for an exercise before you just start slapping plates and plates onto barbells or picking up heavier and heavier dumbbells.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point because I think I mean, I'll say this: all of us can look back at videos of ourselves lifting and like, Jesus, what the fuck were you doing? Like my technique was so bad. I mean, I even look back at myself, I would say maybe, even, I mean, I'm in power for about 5 years. So 5 years ago when I first started, and it was like, Jesus, I was still pulling that heavy a weight with that crappy of technique, now in all eyes, it wasn't horrible, but it was just like, man, maybe I should have been focusing more on my technique. But, when you're self-coaching, it's a little bit harder. And I think that's where, people like us come into play because it's finding that even keel of like, okay, we're going to program for you. We're going to help you get to where you want to be, but we're going to make sure that the technique is sound first, and then we push weight after. And we don't just push weight where we're going out for max reps, but we're doing volume, hypertrophy blocks, off-season training, changing things up so the tissue adaptability is there. We don't want to just do the same things consistently and constantly and then go in for maxes. That's not how your body trains. That's not how our body works. That's not how you're gonna grow. And I think like having people understand that is pretty hard because like a lot of people just have one goal in mind when they come to you. Like, I want to be able to get back to doing this or lose this weight or be able to, I don't know, like lift this weight, and they don't think about the process that goes into that, or they don't think about the process that goes into somebody else being able to do that. People compare themselves, and especially in the athletic industry and the fitness industry, everyone compares themselves. They have some sort of model who they see on Instagram or Facebook or something. They're like, I want to look like that. That's how most people don't realize that that person has gone through a boatload of experiences, probably injuries as well, to be able to get to that where they want. Because it's a lot about life lessons and learning about like, okay, my body can do this, my body can't do this. I got an injury, what caused it? How do I fix it? How do I make sure it doesn't happen again? And I think a lot of people just kind of want to get to the solution. They're like, you know what? I don't care about the work. I just want to get to that. I don't care about mentally how draining it may be, how hard it's going to be, how much time it might take my body, because I feel like I can make the change like that. Well, your body most of the time, unless you're super young, can't just make the flip the script like that. Even people who are young. So I think coming in with that mindset is such a big deal with people because they think they want to just jump right into things and they'll get their goal in, I don't know, a month or a couple of weeks. And it doesn't take that way. And if you continue to push and push, I think what I have found with my clients is if they just push and push, the body will then react to what you're doing to it, and then injury will happen. Even if we're load managing well, even if our technique is good, sometimes I will say, like, I've had maybe a client or two get injured, and a lot of times it's not that the technique isn't good, it's not that the programming isn't good. A lot of the times it's more of just the wear and tear on your body that happens, and realizing, it's hard for me if I'm not there for the client in person like you are. I can't see that fatigue and necessarily, maybe the technique breaking down a little bit, or maybe they don't see it even on accessories. It's very hard for clients and people to be able to be like, you know what? I think I should just skip this exercise for today. I'm starting to feel like maybe if I push it a little bit more, I could maybe strain something. That comes with experience and it sucks. But I think it's very difficult to help people learn that and understand the process that goes through that. Because then, if they don't understand that process and that this may take some time, they just want to, boom, let's lift some weights. I don't care about the technique. I just want to load weights. I want to be able to bench 2 plates. I don't care how I do that. I just want to be able to bench 2 plates, or I want to be able to lose 30 pounds. They don't care about the work that it takes. They don't care the consequences that could happen with injuries or other stuff with, not eating right, etc. More health related side effects that could happen if they just kind of jump into things, don't take it slowly, don't take it day by day, don't listen to their body. I kind of went off tangent. Not really. I kind of talked about the tangent. I mean, I didn't go off tangent, but like it's just so critically important and I don't think people realize it. I mean, what is your take? Like, do you feel like if you have a client, do you feel like experiences help people? Like if you have two different clients, one who has no experience lifting, non-athletic background, but wants to come and lose weight and, be able to maybe lift, a bunch of weight versus somebody who has an athletic experience, has a background, but has kind of gotten out of shape and wants to get back into shape. Do you feel like the mindset might differ, or do you feel like that really, their past experiences really take that big of an effect into their ability to kind of understand this might take a little bit longer. We have to focus on technique, not pushing weight so quickly. Does you feel like that kind of affects their mindset at all?
Yeah, absolutely. All the athletes or prior athletes I've dealt with come into training with a totally different mindset, especially people that have competed at high levels in a sport. And even if I get, a mom that's in her 50s that used to swim like Division 1 or Division 2 college swimming, we're talking about a past life like 30 plus years ago, but
Mhm.
they understand the process of what it takes to get an outcome in a lot different of a way than somebody else that hasn't gone through the athletic experience.
Yeah.
So one thing I always try to do is correlate that to I work with quite a handful of musicians at the moment.
Interesting.
Not generally athletic people.
They play the
Uh,
guitar.
get some guitarists, but actually mostly classical musicians.
I'm
Uh,
looking at your guitars in the background.
yeah,
That's
appreciate
why.
it. Um, Yeah, so I try to relate it to like how their journey was in terms of learning an instrument.
Mhm.
Like you,
That's
I
the
always
same
say you
thing.
have to be bad at things before you're good at them.
Yeah.
But we need to go into being bad at it with the correct mindset.
Yeah.
So things like you talked about too. There's quite a lot of other variables in my mind too. I know the basic equation applied force over tissue tolerance, right? But things that change the equation in my head too. Poor night's sleep, not the correct diet, not enough hydration, didn't eat correctly before training, etc. Um, and the other thing I wanted to point out, because I know you and I traditionally work with quite different populations. You're on the powerlifting side. In the Gen Pop too, the thing that one of the best ways that I find that my clients stay injury free is generally speaking, we don't ever max out in the gym.
Hmm.
Uh, I get very, very rare amount of people that want to max out once in a while. And then we go through correct training blocks to do so. But in the Gen Pop, I'm keeping most things in that 8-12 range and just slow, steady progression. The other thing I think a lot of people forget is when you're newer into lifting, you're using Google a lot to find out a ton of the information, and you'll quickly come across progressive overload. And progressive overload, yes. The way I like to look at things, though, taught by the founder of Prescript, he calls it progressive overstimulus is what you're looking for.
Hmm.
So what he talks a lot about that I value a lot and I've brought into my training is even just getting into a better position in the movement is in and of itself progressive overload or a progressive overstimulus. You get more muscle fiber recruitment from that same
Hmm.
working muscle. So I think so many people hear progressive overload and they're like, I got to sneak those 2.5 pounders on the outside of that bar like every single week or I'm not going to grow. And it's like, hey, there's no problem running with that same weight for a handful of weeks as long as technique is improving. You notice you'll feel like you're getting stronger. Things that I didn't respect back in my ego lifting days. I met an awesome trainer at DePaul's gym where I went to school, and the guy was back squatting 315. Solid squat for a college gym for sure. And he ran a block set where he squatted 315 for like 7 or 8 weeks straight. And his goal was to make it move like a paperweight. Like it was an initial block where it was heavy. And kind of blew my mind that approach, like willingness to stay at a specific thing, clean the technique. It was by the end of the 8 weeks, like one of the prettiest squats I had ever seen. And then he started tacking weight back on. And I think too many new people, um, just so eager to like, I want that 315 on the bar. And they're not willing to take certain journeys like that. Sit like he knew he had a problem in his hips. And he's like, I'm doing all this corrective work trying to clean up how this right hip moves through the squat. And I'm just going to sit here at this weight because it's like, it's relatively heavy, not so heavy that it's going to break me, but it's not too light that I don't get a stimulus from it. He's
Hmm.
just going to keep getting better position, sit with that stimulus. Um, so I think a lot of people are just quick to jump the gun on slapping weights on. And what I always say too is, unfortunately for people with the egos in the gym, um, outside of dedicated sport like power lifters thinking other power lifters lifting a ton of weight is super cool. Nobody generally cares what you do in the gym. If I walk up to somebody and tell them I bench 2 plates, they're like, okay. It's like it is irrelevant to chase those metrics. I think a lot of people put tons and tons of emphasis on like I can lift X or I can do Y. And it matters inside those four walls and generally not outside of them. So it's like
Yeah.
take time to learn it correctly. Make sure you stay as close to injury free as possible. Um, yeah, and the other underlier, if you're really pushing your body for performance, so talking about getting into the more performance-based things or the people truly dedicated towards the goals, if you're pushing that hard for that long, more than likely something is going to happen along the way. You're trying to minimize it from being catastrophic, is the
Hmm.
idea.
Yeah.
Like tweaks and sprains, I don't necessarily look at them always as injuries, um, versus like catastrophic, muscle tear, ligament tear. That's what you're aiming to avoid.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I will say, add to your powerlifter thing, you know what? You go out into the open world and people ask me, like, how much do you squat? And I tell them, what I did at Nats, which is 738. And they can't even fathom, like, how many plates that is on a bar because most of them don't even go to, like, a gym, like, that has that many plates. You ask them how much I deadlift. like 771. They can't figure that out. And most of the time people ask me, why do you do that? Like why do you do that? Like, or that must have taken you a long time to get to be able to do that. And a lot of it's just it's such a long, complex answer that I can't like necessarily tell them all that I did and all the work because it's such a long journey. But like when I have clients or people who come up to me and they're like, I want to get like you, it's kind of just like, I want to get like you like soon. It kind of I giggle in the back of my head because I'm like, listen, man, like you don't know, or he or she, you don't know the time, the effort, the blood, sweat, the tears that it took to get my body the way that I want it to look and to get my training to where I want it to look. Because sometimes I'll have clients be like, yeah, I want to lose 50 pounds in 3 months. And I was like, well, what's our baseline first off? Where are we at health wise right now? What needs to be changed? Is that even healthy for us to even lose that much weight in that quick of a period of time? But people just throw out goals, and I feel like they just get goals from what they hear about family or friends or someone. My girlfriend lost 50 pounds working with this guy in 3 months. Why can't you do that for me? And I would ask questions. Well, what exactly did your girlfriend just train and not eat? Like, what exactly to do that? She was already pretty healthy already. Oh, she took Ozempic or something. Okay, well then, if you're not going to do that, that's probably something that you can't compare yourself to. I feel like comparing ourselves to others is very toxic in life, not just with fitness, but with everything. Um, and I feel like I kind of messes people's mindsets up about like doing it the right way, going in and attacking each workout with your trainer or when you go into the gym and making sure that the technique is solid, that you're doing the exercise and performing it correctly, that you're actually feeling the muscles that you're supposed to be feeling in the exercise, not doing it incorrectly or something like that. And then over time, you do it so wrong, you start to feel a little bit of pain in your shoulder or something like that. And then I also think of understanding that muscle that doesn't get put on in a matter of a couple weeks. Like you're not just going to be able to, oh, 30 pounds, 50 pounds, I lost that weight. Where's my muscle at? Well, it's there, but you have to build it up. Like I think that's something that
Yeah.
people don't realize. And I wouldn't say that's like that's not anyone's fault. Like a lot of people are not in the health industry. They didn't go to school. They didn't get certifications. So their knowledge is like me trying to talk to my girlfriend about accounting. Like, just
Got
over my head, you
yeah,
know?
I got a story on that one.
Tell us, tell us. I'm
Started,
curious. Tell us your story.
yeah, when I started fitness 12 years ago to show like the naive mindset, if I think back on like where a client comes from, because this is a journey I always respect for the people that I work with. I started with a home workout DVD program called T25. So a lot of people, most people have probably heard of the P90X. It
Peanut. I was just about to say
Yeah,
that.
so it's a variation on P90X. It's just a 25-minute variation, right?
Richard Simmons, man. My
Um,
grandma used to do that back in the day.
yeah, so this one I think Sean T or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Dude's jacked out of his mind. I'll give him props where props are due. But I'm over here like, what was I, 20? Yeah, 20, 21 years old, something like that. Young, impressionable dude. Lack of history in the gym, like played sports but didn't know about working out. Find this T25 thing. It's like 90 or 100 days long, 25 minutes. And you use like between 5, 10, 15 pound dumbbells at most. And I was over here thinking like I'm coming out this looking like an NFL like running back, like jacked, right? And by the end, it's like, yeah, I mean, I maybe was marginally a little bit more athletic looking. And I was like, how long does this actually take?
Hey,
Like I did, and it was I had no clue until I went through. That was like my first smack in the face. Second one was I like walked into a gym and I was like, yeah, I can bench my body weight. I'm over here getting strangled by a barbell like 2 minutes later. Had no business attempting that. Like just didn't understand what was loadable, what wasn't loadable.
hmm.
First time squatting, super embarrassing. Like we've all been there, and it's you
Yeah,
just have to be bad at it before you're good at it.
yeah.
Um,
You have to put the ego, if you're going in, I'm sure you tell your clients this. Ego isn't just what I find with clients, it's not just like a power lifter. I want to max out every day. Ego lifting is also going into the gym and thinking, well, last week I did 3 sets, but I'm really super tired today. I got no sleep. I didn't eat right. I didn't hydrate. So, but I should be doing 4 sets because last week I did 3 sets and it was super easy. That's
Yeah,
also ego lifting for people. And I tell people that too. My clients, my personal training clients, like you have to realize that ego lifting is not just some meathead in the gym going for a PR. It's also the everyday person going into the gym or into their personal training session, not telling their coach, hey, I got no sleep. I didn't drink. I got like 1 meal in out of my 5 meals in today. But you know what? I feel like I should couldn't do an extra set of some goblet squats or an extra set of lunges, with or
yeah,
move the weight up because I'm feeling good today. And then, after the second set, they absolutely die. And then they get down on themselves and they're like, what's going on? And then they tell their coach about it after. It's like that's also ego lifting. There's obviously different spectrums of it.
yeah. Oh
Um,
yeah,
but people don't realize that that's just as important as understanding, like, okay, adaptation, adapting to your circumstances, being able to put your ego at the door, realize, okay, you know what? Today is not my day. Let me make sure I make all the reps, good technique, sound, making sure that they're correct the way my coach Josh or coach Andrew wants me to do them and how I know they're supposed to be done because I've been doing them correctly for a long time. And you know what? I may not feel as sore. Everyone wants to feel sore after a workout, but I know that I at least did it correctly and I did what I could that day because I didn't treat my body well the whole 24 hours prior to this workout. That's also ego lifting. Like,
yeah.
and there's two different aspects of it and spectrums. And, I think everyone's got a story like you, man, like starting out with squatting and like deadlifting and benching and just having absolutely no idea what you're doing. I mean, like, I was like, I remember in high school, I was doing literally reverse lunges with a barbell with like 500 pounds and or like split squats with like 4 plates. And literally it was like so idiotic because that's what my coach, one of our football strength and conditioning coach was having us do. And then I switched to track and the track coach was a D1 football and track player. And he was like, yeah, we're going to do a powerlifting off-season program for you. You're going to learn how to squat. I could barely squat 3 plates, but he's like, how the hell do you reverse lunge 5 plates, but you can't even squat three? And it was
Yeah.
kind of humbling for me. It was like, well, these are things that I need to be able to work on to get stronger, not just functionally, but with the sport of football and track. And kind of eye-opened me for a little bit because everyone thought I was so strong because I could do these unilateral, high, stable, very dynamic movements with lunges. But like the carryover to the sports that I played, very minimal, especially loading that type of weight. And that was kind of a ego hit to me.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm super strong, and then I can't even squat 3 plates. And my coach is kind of like, what the hell? So that's my experience with it. And it just took me a while to come to that mindset of like, and now I'm to the point where that there's an exercise or something like that where I just feel like it's not my day. I know I didn't eat. I didn't get all my meals in, not enough sleep, not enough water. I'll just cut it, message my coach, tell him like, hey, listen, I'm cutting this exercise. No reason for me to do it. We'll be like, okay, cool, fine. We can push it to next week or just skip it. It's not going to affect their training.
Yep.
That's the mindset that mindset along with getting the goals and progress that you want just takes time. It takes experience. As you said, you had very little injuries with any of your clients, but I'd also say that like I feel like no injuries is also not like how do I say this? It's also like the number one thing that I hear people say, like, oh, none of my clients have ever gotten hurt under me. That's great. You don't want that. But I also feel like clients can get hurt emotionally and mentally on themselves because they feel like they should have done more in that session. They should have done more in the week than they did because the prior week they were doing a lot more. And then they get
Yeah.
down on themselves and they get unmotivated. And then they come in the next week or the next day and they're like, you know what, screw this. I just want to go all out for Josh. I want to push weight, push volume, push the intensity up. I don't care what he says. I'm just going to tell him I want to do this, this, and this. And then that's where the ego lifting comes in and the technique breaks down. And then what happens is that Okay, injuries may happen because maybe our technique is bad. Maybe we
Yeah.
tweak something when we're doing a lunge and our knee kind of goes one way or the other. And we're 50 years old now. We're not 30, you know? So it's
And
like,
one thing, yeah, one thing we could probably touch on in the next one is part of like the reason I think I have a great record in not hurting people is I've been hurt so many times and I've been crushed under like and I haven't had major catastrophic gym injuries, knock
yeah,
on wood. Couple relative serious things, but nothing along the lines of what's out there on YouTube or Instagram. Um, but I think I came from no background in this to like self-learning. And I've been buried under every barbell, which direction you could ever think of. I've done all the dumb things over the years. So I always joke with my clients, like, I learned all the terrible things to do the hard way so that you don't have to. If you just listen to what I
what we
say, like,
say.
you can
Yeah.
avoid 95% of the embarrassment in the commercial gyms and things like that. Um, yeah, so many dumb things over the years that I did when I had no clue what was going on. But it's the experience that brings you where you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I always tell clients too, like, just don't be afraid to fail forward. Like when you start going to the gym on your own doing homework, like you're gonna bomb some things because you just don't understand what's going on or how something's going or how to address that. Today's not my day. And you just take that with a grain of salt and move on. It's like training, that one day of your training career is like less than 0.0001% of the time that you're going to be training, ideally. So, just take it with a grain of salt, pick up, move on, and keep going.
Yeah. And I feel like that's in kind of, we'll talk about the other two topics that we thought about in correlation to why people get injured so often. But I do feel like a point you just brought up of like kind of make the best of what you got during that day and kind of move on and go on to the next day. Um, I feel like for me, the times where, I mean, there's a time to push and there's a time to not. You know, I would say for people, um, the time to push would be when you're kind of just having a rough day mentally or emotionally. And, you know, you're debating whether or not to go to the gym. Most of the time, it's better to go to the gym, go to your client session with Josh or Andrew, go to the workout, take your anger or frustration out, focus on what you have to during that period of time. You'll feel better about yourself than not going because you at least have accomplished something that like you were debating. Man, even though you normally don't think that's an accomplishment going to the gym, if you just kind of went and did your workout normally and whatnot, it's still an accomplishment because you overcame kind of the circumstances in your head of I'm not going to go to the gym, and then you think about a bunch of reasons why you shouldn't go. If you just go, you're going to feel better going than not going. And I feel like a lot of times that's where the most progress is made, is actually going and doing the workouts, doing the technique properly, going in every day and doing the little things correctly. So then when it comes to, you know, pushing your body to do an extra set or pushing or adding some weight on, and your technique is really good with adding that weight, you'll be like, okay, those times where like I didn't push when I followed the program how I was supposed to, I didn't ego lift, I came in the gym even though I maybe didn't want to, but I still focused on everything. I didn't push when I wasn't eating or not hydrating well, and I kind of did what I needed to do and did what the program followed, you're going to thank yourself for doing that more often times than regretting it. And I feel like if you can push yourself through those times, you're going to look back on it when you achieve the goal that you want and be like, man, I remember that day when I was struggling to go to the gym and it was like workday was horrible and it was like traffic was horrible, but I still came and I put the work in. Like you're gonna remember those days more often than even sometimes the good days where you hit a little PR or you lose 5 more pounds in the week or a couple more pounds than you thought you would in the week. Like in my opinion, like for me and all my clients, that's what I tell them is like the days when finding that good in between, even for my patients who I treat for my job, finding that good in between of, humbling yourself on your good days and realizing when to stop. Okay, my technique's breaking down. Let me rack the weight. Maybe drop the weight down a little bit if I'm pushing too much. Oh, I'm starting to feel some pain. Okay, stop pushing it, even though I was feeling good during that session. Humbling yourself on your good days, but then in your bad days, making sure that you still get the work done. As long as it's not like an injury or something like that where you shouldn't be training, but more mentally and emotionally, or if you're just kind of feeling lazy, maybe just going into the gym and maybe doing a little bit half of what you're supposed to be doing, you're gonna feel better about doing that than going home and doing nothing. So on your bad day, still doing something is better than doing nothing because if you compare yourself to others, you know, very few people work out and take the time out of their day to go to the gym, to find a personal trainer, to better themselves, to better their health, to eat better. So you're doing something, you're doing one thing better than a lot of other people are ever doing. And I try to tell my clients that.
Yeah, one thing I've always said for my clients, because I'll get the people once in a while that'll be like, I only made it to the gym 2 times since I saw you, and one time I didn't have really any time, so I did like 15 minutes on a treadmill. And I think they look to me for like almost some level of like, hey, that's not enough. You got to get in there more, XYZ. Um, we're on a very positive journey here to improving habits and lifestyle for somebody.
Hmm.
So my response always is, you know what you did that day? And they're like, what? And I'm like, beat everybody that sat on the couch.
Hmm.
And anything, I live by that. Anything is better than nothing, even if you can get a small amount in.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm all for, yeah, or I get the clients like, hey, I got 15 minutes and today's supposed to be legs. What do I do? And I tell them split squat or Bulgarian split squat until you can't stand up.
You're one of those people.
Like, yeah, like you can get a whole lower body session in a
Mhm.
single accessory exercise for most people.
Yeah.
Um, is it the most optimal? Absolutely, definitely not. But if you got 15 minutes and you need to hit lower body, like that's a pretty savage session for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You can use it for movement prep. You can load it heavy and you can go take that super close proximity to failure. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, to me, it's consistency over the long haul that shines. I have a client, I won't speak her name on a podcast, but she's been with me 7 years. She's one of the ones for Gen Pop that stands out to me. We train 2 days a week, and everybody thinks you can't make progress doing something like that. This
Yeah.
woman has lost like 40 pounds, put on probably 20 something pounds of muscle. I mean, and granted, over 7 years, like, can that process be sped up? Yeah, sure, with 3, 4, or 5 days a week training, but
Hmm.
it can also be done over the long haul, just slowly and steadily. She has 2 days that she can get it in, very little free time throughout the week outside of that with the nature of her work. And it's like you can do a lot with less.
Hmm.
Uh, so I think that's a mindset too I like from a lot of people because there's a huge emphasis on recovery in between sessions for that. Very easy for a person that goes in with an approach somewhat similar, like the 2 to 3 days a week, to keep injuries to a net minimum for those types of people.
Oh yeah. I think that's a great point. And I think overall for tonight's episode, we really just wanted to talk about, we have obviously there's so many different reasons why people get injured. But we kind of just broke down for you guys tonight, kind of like our first two that came to our mind, load management and bad technique. But there's there's like those are like the two main ones, but there's factors that go into why that happens and how people start to get bad technique and how people start to have bad load management and kind of ways that you can kind of get around that and try to avoid that from happening. And I think we kind of did a really good job of that, man, because I'll say this, like it is very hard sometimes to get people to buy into that and buy into the process. Um, it also helps when you have a lot of clients who have good positive experiences and like they're like, if they're friends and a friend, word to mouth, and they're like, yeah, I got then they maybe can go the buy-in's a little bit easier because they're like, well, I saw this, but even that, everyone's different. And that's
Yeah.
something I gotta tell my clients is like I work with 3 or 4 different couples and like, well, my husband's losing 20 pounds. I haven't done that. I'm like, well, we've lost 12. But she's like, I'm like, it's not a competition. You guys are supporting each other. Also, you and your husband's build are just different. So getting them into the mindset of that is just, and being able to kind of talk to people and motivate them and help them understand the process is so important. And yeah, but so for the next episode, we're gonna do a part two. We will figure that out. Me and Josh are both very busy. But I wanted to give you guys before we leave here. We got like a minute and a half left before we got to head off. Um, the two topics we'll be talking about next week of two more reasons why people get injured so much are kind of related. Well, they are related, but too much volume and then improper recovery. Which I can't wait to talk to improper recovery because that's right down my spectrum of people really getting injured, especially with physical therapy. So in powerlifting, it's just such a big harp thing. So, um, Josh, any final thoughts about tonight's episode, man?
Uh, Tortoise and the hare. We know who wins the race. Take it slow and steady if you're looking to get into fitness. It's not a race. This is a lifelong journey. Keep yourself safe. Keep a smart head when you're in the gym. Don't do things that you have no business doing.
Simple as that. This man always comes up with the best analogies, tortoise and the hare. You feel like he's got a list on the back that I can't see. And
Uh,
it's like, I'm going to say this tonight and make Andrew be like, damn, that's a good one. So, all right, you guys, with that, we appreciate you guys joining and signing in. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and if you have any topics that you want us to talk about, comment in the comment section below. But don't forget to subscribe and like. And thanks, Josh, for coming on. Part two coming up soon. Other than that, guys, have a great night.
Absolutely. Take care.
Take care, guys.